The Titanic, built on March the 31st, 1909, was the biggest ship to have ever been made at the time and made local newspapers. Back then, the Titanic got so much fame that people were extremely enthusiastic to get a ticket on its maiden voyage. Just imagine how feverish the scene at the ticketing area of the Titanic. The demand was so ridiculously high that the ship reached full capacity and sold out. The staff had no choice but to throw in the towel and say, "Sorry folks, we're all booked up." The Titanic departed on its maiden and fateful voyage on April the 11th, 1912 from Southampton, England, with a destination of New York City, USA. Everything was going great until the night of April the 15th, 1912. At 2:20 AM, the Titanic sank and took most of its passengers with it. It was a total disaster. Today, we're going to dig deep and find out what happened and share with you some of the wildest theories out there. The Titanic was one heck of a massive ship. It wasn't just huge, it was insanely fast too. Now, you might be thinking, hey, what's wrong with going fast? Sounds exciting, right? Well, hold on. In this case, it turned out to be a total disaster. Usually when you're cruising down at a speed like that, things can go from woohoo, we're having a blast, to oh no, real quick. Imagine you're going in your car fast and suddenly a pothole's in the way. What do? There isn't enough time to swerve or hit the brakes, so you close your eyes and hope the sound your car's making isn't expensive, right? We're sure the crew of the Titanic had their hands full trying to react and avoid a collision. It's like trying to pull off some crazy driving manoeuvre at top speed. If only they were cruising at a slower pace, they might have had a better chance of swerving around that icy beast, or at least softening the blow. This combination of speed and the weight of the Titanic's collision with the iceberg is a tragic reminder that going full throttle can come back to bite you. The makers and crew of the Titanic were so sure that the ship was unsinkable that when the time came and there was a need, they straight up didn't have enough space on the lifeboats for everyone on board. Imagine a huge ship sailing with pride and suddenly something goes wrong. The crew goes, "We did not plan for this." The lifeboats they did have saved only half of the people on board. So when the ship started going down, all hell broke loose. People were scrambling, trying to find anything that would keep them afloat. Even a wooden plank part of the ship would do. It was chaos, pure and simple, and unfortunately, a lot of people could not make it. The panic-filled reaction of the crew was, well, unprofessional. The lack of coordination between the crew members could be the biggest reason too. When the Titanic collided, the crew had no idea how to handle the situation. They were all over the place, no solid plan in sight, and some of them didn't even realise how serious the situation was. Here's the thing, when something like this goes down, the crew is responsible to stay calm and guide the people to safety, not the other way around. Think about it, if they had their act together and everyone knew their role, maybe they could have saved more lives. But because of all the confusion and disarray, things went south real quick. When the Titanic was first built, the engineers tried their best to make sure it was not going to sink. They gave it a double hull. That means it had 2 layers of metal for added strength and protection. Sounds good so far, right? But here's the catch. The hull, or the outer shell of the ship, wasn't as sturdy as it could have been. They could have made it stronger, but they didn't, and that might have been a big mistake. So, when the Titanic hit that iceberg, the impact was a lot for the hull to handle. It didn't hold up as well as it should have, and that's one of the reasons why the ship started taking in water. It just couldn't withstand the force of the collision. Crazy theories are going round that the Northern Lights may have had something to do with the sinking of the Titanic too. So, the compass is mostly used in ships for navigation, especially at night, telling you which way to go. Turns out that sometimes they can go haywire. The northern lights, called the aurora borealis, happen when these charged particles from the Sun have a little reaction with our Earth's atmosphere, causing those beautiful patterns up in the sky. These particles can sometimes glitch with magnetic fields. Guess what? The Titanic's compasses were caught up in that mess. When these particles impaired the Titanic's magnetic fields, the compass went crazy. Imagine trying to steer clear, but your compass just won't cooperate and just keeps spinning round in random directions, causing total confusion. Long story short, those mesmerising northern lights could have interfered with the Titanic's compasses, making it hard for the crew to navigate and avoid that iceberg. There are theories that there was some interference going on with their fancy telegraph equipment. That's the equipment used by the crew members to communicate with other ships actively and make sure there's no trouble ahead. The Northern Lights decided to make an entrance and cause havoc. These lights can also mess with the signals by which the telegraph equipment works. While the crew was trying to send important messages to other ships, there was no response, like complete silence. Because of this interference, the crew had a tough time getting their messages through, especially during emergencies, and time was of the essence. It was a life or death situation, and with the communication jammed, the other ships had no idea what was going on. They had no information to come in, lend a hand, and save more people in the process. Now, this theory is fascinating. It's no secret that these fancy lights up in the sky are beyond beautiful, right? Some say that those lights, just being there, caused the collision with the iceberg. The crew could be caught up just staring into the sky without paying attention ahead, and boom, impact. The flashing lights of the Northern Lights could have caused this messing with the depth perception of the crew members who were on the lookout. Whilst keeping an eye out, the crew members must have seen it and thought it was no big deal. We're still really far away from the iceberg, no need to panic, when in reality it was right on top of them and about to cause a disaster. With their judgment all messed up, it was a real challenge for the lookouts to figure out how close that iceberg was. They couldn't gauge the right distance and make the necessary moves at the right time to dodge it. The Northern Lights, apart from causing the range identification issues, caused another dangerous effect too. All that extra lighting was too much for the crew, giving them a hard time. Imagine being one of the lookouts and there's so much light in front of you, you can't tell what's what. The boundary between the iceberg and the surroundings could have blurred into this crazy light show, messing with their perception. While the Titanic was cruising in an area known for having icebergs, the weather didn't make it easy to navigate either. It was already night time, extremely dark and gloomy, and a complete nightmare for the crew to spot anything at all. So yeah, thanks to the lousy weather, the crew probably didn't see that massive iceberg until it was too late. Along with the many theories floated about the Titanic over the years, one lesser mentioned but more recently brought up is the idea of intentionally sinking the Titanic due to certain passengers on board. In 1910, several of the most influential people at the time met on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia to plan the creation of the US Federal Reserve Bank. These included representatives of the Rockefellers' financial empire, the Rothschild banking dynasty, and J.P. Morgan, who would become the financier of the Titanic. There was some very strong opposition to this plan. The three most richest and important opponents were Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, the head of Macy's department stores, and John Jacob Astor, probably the wealthiest man in the world at that time. Without their help, the private federal bank would not happen. After coaxing and encouragement, they booked voyage on the Titanic, along with J.P. Morgan, Milton Hershey and other elites at the time. At the last second, Morgan and Hershey cancelled their trip. Guggenheim, Strauss and Astor all perished aboard the Titanic, and the privatised Federal Reserve Bank was formed in December of the following year. Why J.P. Morgan, who built the Titanic, refused to travel on his modern marvel at the time remains a question to many people today. What do you think could have caused the sinking of the Titanic? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting, make sure to leave us a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be always updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.